Hey guys, number one Marmaduke fan here. My family reunion is going well, and I picked up a indie RPG book as an impulse buy. Look at that. I got an index card with bullet points. That's how you know I'm serious. So this isn't going to be, I'm not going to do like a full breakdown of the game and the rules and the characters. If you are interested in something like that, based on this video, let me know in the comments and I'll try a video like that. That's something that would require like editing and more careful presentation. This is just more like my impression of the game so far. So it's called Root, or Rut if you live in Idaho, I guess. And it's very strongly evoking Redwall vibes, little woodland creatures in a medieval setting. Mouse Guard is similar. I loved the Mouse Guard graphic novel, but I didn't get into the Mouse Guard game because I wasn't into tabletop games when that was first becoming a big thing. So I picked it up purely based on those Redwall vibes and the art style kind of having an appealing, goofy kind of, you feel like you could play this with, your 12-year-old nephews and nieces, right? And then I was actually kind of very pleasantly surprised by it. I was kind of going and thinking, okay, this is just going to be, typical bare bones stuff. And some of the things really got me thinking. So let's dive into some of that. So the main thing that got me was, the immediate vibe I got was, okay, this is going to be a Star Wars rehash. We're going to have a scrappy band of woodland creatures against an evil cat empire. But then when you get into the actual lore of the world, it's a little more complicated than that. And they make a point that here, I'll just go ahead and flip to it so you can see the factions. They sort of make a point that none of the factions are evil empire levels of cartoon bad guyness. So your choices of who you could serve are the Eyrie dynasties, who are racist eagles who used to have the power in the world, and then after the Civil War, they're basically they only have a fraction of their former power, but they'd like to regain their control over the woodland. You've got the Marquessate, run by the Marquis de Chat, which is like a pun on the Marquis de Sade, and it's run by a tomboy cat. Straight out of what is it? Mossflower. I'm even getting Mossflower vibes from this because a female cat lord is also the villain of one of the Redwall books. But then they make the point that they perceive themselves not as conquerors, but as people who want to bring modern industry and modern lumber yards to the woodlands. And the woodlands are rich in resources. So if we don't conquer it, someone's going to conquer it. So they're very pragmatic. They're not here just out of a desire to torture woodland creatures. So let's see. Okay, so we've got like a right-wing, old-school religious monarchy. We've got right-wing imperial expansionists with a manifest destiny, and we also have right-wing hillbillies who are armed with guns and are nativists, and they want to kick the foreigners out. Which right-wing group do I pick? So the Woodland Alliance are the native denizens of the woodlands. They're kind of sick of these two factions and would prefer to rule it themselves. And then denizens are like hobbits. They're simple little farmers and innkeepers who keep to the clearings in the woods, and they never venture out and have adventures. They're conservative and kind of downtrodden and not really prepared for adventuring life. Now, you are very strongly guided by the game makers to be a vagabond, to the point they say your party consists of a group of vagabonds. That means that you can't say, oh, I'm a soldier in the Marquessate. That could be your background. You could be like someone who was formerly a soldier or a nobleman in one of these groups, but for some reason or other, you are now a vagabond and are not tied to any particular faction or alliance. They even make a point that if you ever settle down and have a family, or if you ever join one of these factions formally, that means you're not a vagabond anymore, which means your character's probably going to leave the party and you'll roll a new character. I haven't read like all the mechanics and the rules yet, but their explanation of that is the game is built around the assumption you're a vagabond. I'm assuming if you're really comfortable doing more free-handed roleplay, you could always do it like, oh, we're going to do a campaign as the based cat conquerors, right? But for now, we're just assuming you're going to be a vagabond. X cards. So some of this is interesting to me because it's tying into, broader culture war questions about role-playing games and D&D. So the X card is their solution to the safe space problem. So you give every player an X card, and they can X something if they don't like something. Now, my thought on this is the way I control for this kind of thing is I don't invite losers to play with me. What do you do if someone wants to rape everybody? Well, I don't invite that guy to play with me. Therefore, I don't need to give people X cards to police that kind of behavior. They don't really give you like lots of guidelines on how you're supposed to use the X card. They just kind of like present it as an idea. So I thought I'd show that. I guess the other thing about the introduction is if you've played a lot of RPGs, a lot of this is going to be review for you. Like, here's what an NPC is. Here's what a tabletop RPG is. Here's what a GM is. Now, if you've never played a game like that, that's going to be really helpful to you and kind of like help you understand what an RPG is. For me, that kind of stuff was review, so I'm going to gloss over that. The woodland was the most interesting aspect of this to me. Like, I definitely wish there were some Redwall mice who have a little monastery where they toddle around in their fat friar habits. But it's simple enough that I think anybody could follow it, and just complicated enough to intrigue someone. So there was a Grand Civil War. Grand Civil War broke up the old empire. There was an interwar period where the woodland creatures got used to essentially living without an overarching anarchy, and the cats invaded, seeing that power vacuum. And then the alliance rises to kick out both of those two factions. So that was kind of cool. You can see. And the other neat thing is they don't like fastidiously define every aspect of these. Like they basically make the point, if you want, the Aerie could be ruled by a charismatic king who believes in, divine right of conquest, or it could be, ruled by a hedonist monarch, and really the viziers hold power. The Marquis de Chat could be on the ground, leading the campaign, or maybe she's more like a foreign aristocrat who has a more hands-off approach. You have some freedom. These guys could be more like Robin Hood heroes, or they could be maybe more like aggressive terrorists who are willing to sacrifice the civilians to get what they want. The GM has a lot of discretion in the details and specifics of the world. The thing that's most complicated and that I'm most on the fence about is the mechanics of the world itself. So, for example, if you like this setup, you could just pull that setup and then run 5e in it if you want. I'm still working my way through how all the skills and scores work. So, big basic thing number one is they simplify the number of dice down to 2d6, which is pretty smart, because if you are running a more narrative-centric campaign, why not simplify the math and random chance element of it down to the most simple type of game? One of my observations DMing a game of Dungeons and Dragons is even 5th edition, which is supposed to be the most rules simplified version, it was still pretty complicated. It was still my family had was really challenged by it, which ended up being fun. They were challenged by the game, but I could kind of tell this is the most complicated game I can introduce my family to. Like, if there was an even nerdier, mathier version of D&D, I probably wouldn't be able to get them to play that. So if you have like normies you play with, or you're playing with like middle schoolers or high schoolers, this might be a nice way of introducing the basics of what is a tabletop RPG without bringing in all the dice and mechanical elements of D&D. The thing I'm most on the fence about is they make character role play a mechanical element. So speaking for myself, I don't need to be rewarded with points or in-game mechanical elements to role play my character. The fun of role playing my character is being my character and acting out his flaws and his strengths. But they actually break it down to, you have a nature. Your nature is something that hold on, I gotta remember this. Your nature is something. Your nature is how you feel, and then you also have two drives, and your drives are things you want. And in order for you to play optimally, you have to act according to your nature. So if you have a strong desire, if you want to save women and children, then you're going to have to save women and children at some point in the game. If you want to stuff your face with delicious stolen home-baked goods, you're going to have to steal some home-baked goods and stuff your face with them. So that's the part I'm most on the fence about. So that's something I'd probably like to talk about more if I had a chance to run this game, see how it worked actually on the table, and maybe in doing an actual breakdown of every element. What else did I want to cover? Okay, so some of the other stuff is just sort of like basics, like how to play an RPG, character build. Okay. Here's another cool thing. So here's something I really, really liked. So character building and racial characteristics. So D&D is kind of currently going through an argument about this, where should different races and species of characters have different characteristics? Should hobbits be more dexterous, and should orcs be more strong? And the tendency for D&D in newer editions has been to flatten a lot of that and make it so that, if you're a hobbit, then you can be strong. If you're an orc, then you can be dexterous. But one question that brings up is, what's the difference between an orc and a hobbit? Like, can hobbits be 9 feet tall and super strong? Can orcs be 3 feet tall and enjoy second breakfast? Or does that break the shared narrative? The other problem is, if you have game mechanical elements related to a race or a species, then there's always going to be a metagame aspect. The reason people always play halfling rogues is that halflings get a mechanical advantage to their dexterity that works great for rogue characters. It's suboptimal to play a troll or an orc as a rogue because of that. So I really like their solution to this. Their solution to this is there are no mechanical racial characteristics. So don't metagame it. If you want to be a rabbit, be a rabbit. If you want to be a beaver, be a beaver. If you want to be a possum, be a possum. It's not going to make your character more or less optimal. But there is a shared fiction. So birds can fly, moles can dig holes, and possums are good at playing dead. But there's no move called playing dead that only possums have. Your character has certain characteristics based on the shared fiction that birds can fly and moles are good at digging holes. But when it comes down to the role, it's simplified to the GM chooses the most appropriate skill check would be the term in D&D. I think they call it a move. So the GM determines the most appropriate move. So if the mole wants to dig a hole under the bad guy's lair, DM calls for a roguish stealth check. If the bird wants to fly away from arrows, the GM calls for an acrobatics check. I kind of like that because it's putting the weight of what are the differences between the animal characters onto the players and their shared imaginative experience of the world, and it's preventing metagaming where you should only ever play a rabbit scout, or you should only ever play a mouse rogue, right? It's giving you a little flexibility about species and character class essentially. I don't think I'll say anything else. So they are guiding you how to frame yourself in the world, and I'm a little bit more freeform in my styles. So, for example, right here, they say, this world does not have gender discrimination. And my immediate thought is, okay, wait a minute, why don't they have gender discrimination? We've already established they have racism. We have a racist bird empire. So how can they have racism but not have gender discrimination? But that's just me being me, right? One more. Where was I going to go with that? I was going to go somewhere with that, and now I'm having a brain fart. The reason that's important is I do like some of the ways they guide the experience. So one of the difficult things with animal characters is how animal are they versus how human are they? And their line for this is to think of it as more of a fable. So can birds fly? Sure. Can birds fly if they have heavy armor? Probably not. Do foxes eat rabbits? Because if foxes eat rabbits, isn't that going to be awkward to have a fox and the rabbit on the same team? Probably not. Foxes just eat hardtack, same as everybody else, right? Are wolves 400 times bigger than mice? Probably not. Maybe wolves are a tiny bit bigger than mice. Don't overthink it, right? Because if you're a world builder, then your tendency is to want to overthink and plan everything out. So I actually kind of appreciated that aspect of it. It's a fable. Rabbits and foxes don't really have medieval battles. You can ignore your nerdy questions about some of those fastidious things. So that's it for the overarching thoughts video. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in like a deep dive on the mechanics, and I'll try to do a follow-up. Those take a lot of work, so I actually I want to wait to hear if some of you are interested in that before I commit to doing something like that. But number one Marmaduke fan, love you guys. If you're looking for a fun little indie and cozy animal vibes RPG, check out Root. The makers are, I think Letter Games made the original board game. I think Magpie made the RPG system. So love you guys. Catch you later.